In today's LEGO City update, it's time to bring life to the city, adding a ton of details, especially on the upper platform of the city. First of all, I'm starting off with a wish from the comment section, which was a small fountain. What I'm installing right here are the small water jets of the fountain. I've specifically paid attention when it comes to the future lighting I'm going to install and therefore prepared everything beforehand. When it comes to the outer part of the fountain, I decided that this upper platform lacks greenery at the moment, and therefore I've decided to first of all cover everything up with leaves, once again to hide all the studs. And now the second layer are the stems, on which then furthermore flowers are being planted in order to add a touch of color, and also lampposts on the outside in order to once again light everything up as soon as I'm installing the LEDs. A tree, and now as soon as I'm adding minifigures, all of the sudden everything really comes to life. The difference it makes to simply have minifigures is always astonishing. Next up, it's time to cover up this empty facade of that building right there. And in fact, over a year ago, I designed this scaffolding for a construction site. And since in my new LEGO City layout, I never really found a good place for that, now is the perfect time to add it to this empty facade at the moment, instead of extending the entire building around the corner. I think that really looks interesting and adds a lot of realism to this part of the city. Next up, it's time to add the first new building of today's episode. I honestly reused certain design structures I've developed over the past years of building Lego. Since this building shows to the backside of the city, I didn't really want to spend an entire week designing a completely new building from scratch. On the other side of this row of houses, I'm adding the second new building, which was, some of you might actually remember this, designed for my old LEGO City layout as well, just like the construction site. And therefore I've decided to simply add that to this row of houses coming up onto the upper platform. Now onto my favorite part of today's update. It's finally time to connect the two sides of the city. At the moment we have the long street running through the entire city and dividing everything, and therefore this is now the great benefit of having designed the streets completely by myself. I can simply add markings to the street just as I wish, and this would have not been possible, to be honest with you, if I would have simply tiled the streets or on the other side used the original Lego street plates, which are a bit trash, to be honest with you. First of all, what I'm adding right here is the stop line, and next up it's time to add the marked crossing or zebra crossing, however you want to call it. Since I've built everything via the snot building technique, the white stripes of the crossing itself is designed 4 plates thick, and the rest in between is only designed 3 plates thick, and therefore you get this really nice design that would have otherwise been completely impossible. On the other side of the zebra crossing, I've once again added a second stop line, of course, and now having this completed, it's time to once again add the bridge, which was the best decision to make that completely modular, otherwise this would have been really annoying to build. Everything is then connected once again. Honestly, this part took me 3 hours to redesign, but it was totally worth it if you ask me. And for my favorite part, it's time to add the traffic lights, of course. Now I know that this is different from country to country. In some places you don't have these zebra crossings mixed with traffic lights. I'm designing my city based on an Austrian city, I guess, because that's also how the lighting is then programmed when it comes to the traffic lights. You'll see that in just a second. First of all, this is what the finished design looks like of the traffic lights. Of course, I've added a second one on the other side as well. Then while I continued building, my brother not only added LEDs to the traffic lights, but also programmed the entire crossing. And now, first of all, in order to install everything, we of course, unfortunately, have to drill holes into these jumper plates right there, because the cable have to be fitted through underneath the platform. And now, as soon as we've added the second traffic light as well, there you can see we have to fit every single cable individually underneath the platform. This is what the finished result looks like. It simply adds so much realism and looks so awesome. There you can also see why I've chosen Austrian traffic lights, because in Austria the green light blinks before it switches to red, and I thought it simply looks much more interesting than what traffic lights are programmed like in most countries, I guess. Next up, in order to finally continue building, it's time to move on to the lower platform once again, because we have to create that transition, first of all, with a staircase finally connecting these two parts of the city, which are up till now quite divided, at least in this section of the city. Now, first of all, I of course have to add a rock face in order to cover up this platform underneath, and now after everything is tiled, we add the staircase. I know it's a bit steep, but honestly, I like the style, especially with the curves leading up onto the upper platform. And well, let's just say these are stairs that are simply left from old times. Nowadays, obviously, nobody would build such a steep staircase, but I like the design of it. Next up, I really needed to cover up this annoying gap that was left behind this row of houses. And well, I've spared you this part, how I've exactly built that, because it was really difficult to film. But first of all, I've extended the fence on the back side of the row of houses and of course added a bit of vegetation. Not too complicated, just basic vegetation, simply so it's finished. I know you don't really see this part from the normal viewer's perspective, but since it still annoyed me, I decided to close that gap up. And also now what I'm doing right here is adding a few more different shades of green, simply to add a bit of contrast, and this then finishes off that corner. And well, the main benefit of having added a bit of height is also that now from the normal perspective, there you can see it, also a few of these trees and bushes are shown, and therefore I'm quite satisfied with that. Now of course we still haven't finished this upper platform, especially the row of houses needs to be continued. This will take me a few months, I guess, until I have every single building finally designed. And well, underneath the bridge there you can see this empty space. I'll of course still also need to fill that up. But for now I'd say let's move on to the more rural area, because that's where I now want to finally prepare the next great city expansion. And I first of all have to continue the stream coming down from the mountain, and although I probably would choose a different design, especially color wise, today I decided to stick with the old nostalgic design, but I won't continue this very aggressive blue stream throughout the rest of the Lego City, but much rather end it quite soon as I've added the watermill. I'll show you that in just a bit. And since everything is covered up in, first of all, these trans blue tiles, which makes it look a bit more realistic, I guess, and then secondly, of course, vegetation, which then also hides the stream, I guess it's fine. I won't be adding the vegetation today, that's for next update then. First of all, this is what I'm doing right now. It's time to add the watermill once again. What you can see right there is simply the foundation with a few studs, so it's easy to remove the watermill because I'm going to add lighting once again and also motorize the entire thing. What I mean by that is, some of you might actually even know that by now, I've prepared everything for the original Lego motors, but they are way too loud and well, run on batteries, and therefore I'll probably reuse this gear system I've added inside, but switch up the motor to something that isn't Lego because it simply isn't as loud. Now, one last thing I need to tell you before showing you today's before and after picture. I finally decided against connecting all the train tracks in the middle because it would take up too much space, but instead I'm most likely going to add a small cable car running on top of the mountain in the center of the city right there. Just so you keep that in mind. Now the next Lego City update is most likely going to be the Great City expansion, since as you can see right there, I'm slowly running out of space, except that green area in the middle where I still need to cover up the studs. The rest is quite filled up to this point where the empty wooden plate is, and therefore the next video is going to take me a bit longer than usual to film. And with that, it's time for today's before and after picture. This is what the quite empty upper platform looked like before today's update, and afterwards everything has come to life. All these little details I've added throughout today's update are really important. And with that being said, that's it for today's update. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again in the next one.